Hey, what's up? Welcome back to Past Gas. This week we are talking about the Bathurst 1000, a race we've talked a lot about on this show, but never in depth in its own episode.
One whole episode dedicated to Bathurst, the place, the track, the race, the people. A lot of names we've heard before. The origin of the Godzilla nickname of the GT-R.
A lot of cars we've heard about, like the Ford Falcon and Holden.
Monaro.
Toronto.
A lot of great racing with our twins to the upside down land, the Australians. This is one of my favorite episodes we recorded in a while. Super fun. Without further ado, let's go down under to Bathurst in the Bathurst 1000.
All right, let's go, mate.
On October 7th, 2012, over 200,000 spectators crowded the dramatic landscape near the Mount Panorama Circuit in New South Wales, Australia, for the 50th running of the Bathurst 1000. Over the past 5 decades, the great race had become a vital part of the fabric of Australian motorsport, by extension, Australian culture. Against the V8 soundtrack echoing across the challenging mountainous terrain, the Bathurst 1000 has given us some of the best racing and most iconic cars in the history of the sport. How did the Bathurst 1000 change Australian motorsport? How has one event given the racing world everything from V8 Supercars to the R32 GT-R known as Godzilla? And what about it has made it a cultural icon? Well, today on Past Gas, it's the history of the Bathurst 1000.
The Bathurst 1000, mate. Oh, you're wicked.
Mate, I'm racing in the Bathurst 1000.
Past Gas Podcast. It's about cars, it's not about sports.
Big thanks to Indeed for sponsoring this episode of Past Gas. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/pastgas. Just go to Indeed.com/pastgas right now to support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/pastgas. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
The Bathurst is the reason that the GT-R is known as Godzilla, because the Australian press was a little racist, maybe. And this Japanese monster showed up and just started killing everybody. And it won so much that they started referring to it as Godzilla.
Because they only know one reference from Japan.
Well, there's one. I mean, there's a lot of Japanese monsters to be quite
kaiju.
frank.
Yeah.
I'm not super versed in anime, but just based on the limited art I've seen, lots of monsters.
They got a lot of ghosts over there.
Ghosts
That will trick you in different ways.
Yes. Yeah.
Isn't there like a crawling guy that has an eyeball?
Yes, I was going to say
butt?
the eyeball guy.
Yeah.
There's the water ghost, which is what Ringu is based off of.
Oh.
Yeah. Which is a drowned, scorned woman.
Oh.
Yeah.
Like La Llorona.
Hell hath no
Oh,
fury.
wait, she drowned her kids, right?
La Llorona did.
Yeah. So every culture
We know
has
our monsters.
ghosts. Yeah. But a lot of monsters that they could have chosen from. They chose Godzilla. A little obvious, but sick name.
It's a little on the
sick
nose.
name.
Yeah.
A little on the nose. Anyway, welcome to Past Gas, everybody. My name is Nolan Sykes. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, James Pumphrey, across from me.
Get her done.
What was that?
I just made it up. It's because I saw GTR. When I see GTR, I
Jitter.
think, get her
Put
done.
that on a t-shirt. Put that on some bumper stickers.
Yeah, put that on some bachelor-themed stew.
Let's go to war with Iraq.
Okay.
And Joe Weber, what's
up, Wing Wing Nation?
He's back.
He's back from France.
And we discussed that on our new podcast, The Big Three. Check that out. You've probably seen it in the feed for this show.
Yeah.
But now it's got its own feed.
got its own feed.
Go follow that feed. Big
Just
Three.
like a grown-up horse.
Yeah.
That's right.
This is now the number 2 automotive podcast in the
Past
world.
Gas, formerly the number 1 automotive
we got
podcast
booted
in the
down.
world. And we got booted down.
Well,
by us.
good news, though.
The Big Three is now the number 1 automotive podcast on
go.
the planet.
Yeah.
Go check it out. You'll like it. It was
If
really
you're
fun.
if you're one of the
recording
people that comments too much jokes, too much funny stuff, don't listen to that podcast because it's a lot of
It's
chatter.
a lot of jokes.
It's a lot of funny
usually
stuff.
I save notes for the post episode notes session that we have where we all give each other notes. But Joe, I can't wait. I want to thank you because I think it was really good that you told people not to listen to the other podcast.
Yeah. Well, like restaurants in LA, when they don't have a sign,
Oh, yeah.
it's just going to drum up more mystery.
Oh, yeah. Get some
interest.
buzz. This is like the podcast version of not allowing ketchup.
Interesting.
There's a restaurant called Father's Office in LA that is famous for a burger, and they don't have ketchup.
Not
They
even for
won't
fries?
allow it.
No. If you ask, they go, no.
What do they put the fries in? Other sauce?
Like an aioli.
Aioli?
Yeah, like a garlic aioli.
Yeah,
Oh, that's pretty good.
It's fine. It's not freaking ketchup.
Yeah.
That's no ketchup.
Also, ketchup's like a good sauce. There's nothing inherently trashy
It is,
about
but I think people like it just because it's sweet.
Good?
It's
No, it's
just
good.
sugar.
No, it's tomatoes.
That's
yeah,
pretty
but
sweet,
it's just
James.
jam.
It's pretty sweet.
It's tomato jam. What is garlic aioli? Garlic mayonnaise?
Yeah.
A
but
tomato jam is way classier than a garlic mayonnaise.
When you put it like that, maybe they should not offer ketchup, but a bespoke tomato jam.
If someone was like, "Hey, have you met James Pumphrey?" They'd be like, "Yeah, dude, he's a jam." I'd be
He
like,
loves-
"Sick."
yeah.
But if someone was like, "Oh yeah, he's mayonnaise,"
Yeah.
I'd be like, "Oh my god, I'm gonna kill myself."
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I agree.
yeah, jam.
Jam, tomato jam.
Oh, there's
Yeah.
a massive
There's a
fly.
big-
If
It's
you don't
always
like
lying
ketchup, I say get off your high horse.
Yeah.
Let's go to Australia where they love Vegemite.
The Bathurst 1000 traces its origins back to the Armstrong 500, a 500-mile endurance race that was first held at the Phillip Island Grand Prix circuit in Victoria, Australia on November 20th, 1960. The race was billed as the world's premier saloon car race and was designed to be an endurance and performance test of cars straight off the showroom floor. Early rules were simple and a bit loose, okay?
Okay.
All right.
Quotes?
What are they?
Hey, go, mate. Mate.
Elongate.
Entrance car must be available as in a showroom somewhere in Australia. Yeah.
It's charming down
It's
there.
charming down there. Doesn't mean
Yeah.
the same thing as it does here.
Simply put, if an identical model was available for purchase at any dealership in the country, you could race it.
I think that's sick.
I love it.
FD cars in Japan used to have to be street legal.
That's really
Oh.
cool.
Yeah. I think that's so sick.
I think
Cars get
We need that.
too far
Yeah,
away.
we need
Yeah.
that.
I don't want a car that kind of looks like a street
Yeah.
car. I want
I want a street car that
yeah.
can do crazy shit.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah. Love that.
Like F1's great, super
Put a
cool.
license plate on it.
But I'm saying, but we covered in another podcast episode, like Group 5 almost became the premier racing sport.
Yeah.
It was like Group 5 or F1 at one point. It was
Yeah, yeah.
between the two. And Group 5 is based on street cars.
Yeah.
To me, that's way cooler. I don't look at any F1 car from the early 80s and I'm like, I'm going to buy one of
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
and make it look like that.
I'm going to
But,
go
like,
down to the Alpine dealership
Yeah.
and get myself a.
I have
whatever.
a limited imagination. I like to imagine my little tuckus in there.
All right. So for the Armstrong 500, the cars were divided into 5 classes based on engine capacity. And at the end of the race, class winners were declared and awarded prize money, cash. Although no rules existed to crown an overall winner for the first event, the general consensus is that victory went to one Frank Code and John Roxburgh, who drove a Vauxhall Cresta in the 2001 cc to 3500 cc D class.
D-class, which I assume stands for donut class.
Vauxhall's parent company, General Motors, was hardly thrilled with the good showing. According to Frank Code, they considered racing bad business and didn't want the Melbourne dealership they represented to be involved in the race. And within a few years, though, GM would be clamoring for podiums.
People don't want fast cars.
Hey, if there's one thing people don't like, it's fast cars.
Well, we got to remember, this is only 5 years after the manufacturer motorsport ban, soft ban. They didn't want to be associated with people dying so much.
I didn't consider that.
Which now companies don't mind so much.
They don't. The Armstrong 500 was held at Phillips Island for 2 more years and steadily grew in popularity. But at the end of the 1962 race, the event organizers had a little problem. The already crumbling track had been destroyed from the event and needed a total resurfacing. To complicate matters further, the bridge connecting the island to the mainland wasn't strong enough to withstand the vehicles and equipment needed to complete the project.
That's a problem.
That's a little chicken and the egg problem right there. Cost estimates soared, and event organizers began to look for a new home for the race.
Wait, quick question.
Yeah.
Phillips Island is not where they have the Australian GP. That's Albert Island?
That's Albert Park.
Albert
is where
Park.
they have the Australian race now.
Okay.
That's in Melbourne.
Melbourne.
I've heard of this place, though, Phillip Island.
Phillip Island is where they invented the screwdriver.
Yeah.
It's like they were like, they had to fix a car
Yeah.
and a flathead that kept slipping out.
Couldn't do it.
And they were like, hey, what if we added another, made it a
Yeah.
little crust?
Yeah. I do believe that they race at Phillip Island these days.
Oh, so it got resurfaced.
I think so.
eventually.
Probably got resurfaced since the 70s. Maybe they built a new bridge or
Yeah.
a ferry system. If you know, let us know.
Yeah.
Passgas@donutmedia.com.
Well, they're flush with cash on their new screwdriver invention.
Yeah.
Yeah, they made so much money off those screwdrivers.
In search of that new home, they landed on a beautiful 3.8-mile stretch of road over 400 miles away in Bathurst, New South Wales. Located on the side of a mountain with the same name, the Mount Panorama Circuit was the brainchild of Bathurst Mayor Martin Griffin, who had managed to secure funds from a Great Depression's public works program in the mid-1930s to construct what he pitched as a scenic public road outside the city. But Griffin had an ulterior motive back in the day, okay? He was a diehard racing fan, and having seen the success of a street circuit in the nearby town of Vale, was committed to bringing racing to Bathurst.
That's fun.
It was obvious from the moment that construction began that Griffin was building more than just a scenic drive. While overseeing construction, he insisted the laborers make the turns wider than they were designed. And at one point, Griffin and other local officials even posed for a photo with motorcycle racers Don Bain and Stanley Woods at the construction site. The road was finished in 1938, but from the beginning, periodic road closures had transformed it into Griffin's racetrack vision. That's awesome.
Yeah.
By the end of its first year, it had hosted the Australian Tourist Trophy motorcycle event and the Australian Grand Prix, and played host to several annual events over the next few decades.
That's like fun corruption.
Yeah, that's super fun. That's just taking advantage of a situation.
Yeah.
Fun corruption. The track quickly developed a reputation as formidable thanks to its narrow, steep, and fast design. As cars became larger and more powerful over the years, the track's difficulty seemed to scale accordingly. But with the arrival of the Armstrong 500 in 1963, it would soon become known as one of the best and most difficult races in motorsport.
The intense brand rivalries and a feverish devotion by fans that define today's Bathurst 1000 began the year the Armstrong 500 was held at Mount Panorama.
Oh, from the beginning.
From the beginning, dude.
Okay.
A Ford Falcon had taken the checkered flag the year before, and its success was heavily publicized. Ford's primary sales rival, GM-owned Holden, heard of it?
Heard of it?
Realized the marketing potential of the event and was determined to get in on the action in 1963.
So GM owns Holden as well as Vauxhall?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
For 1963, unbeknownst to GM, back in Detroit, Holden created a showroom-ready vehicle called the EHS4 to comply with the 100-car homologation rule to compete in the event. Launched in August 1963, the S4 had several changes to the standard EH platform, including a blueprinted and balanced 120 horsepower 2.9-liter inline-six, a strengthened transmission, better brakes, a better drive shaft, and a shorter final drive ratio to help it climb the steep hills of Mount Panorama.
Panorama.
Little did Holden know they had just established the blueprint for the future of the Australian performance scene.
So this S4 is giving me like Ford Fairlane vibes.
Fairlane or Falcon.
Yeah.
Definitely very similar to think of a GM Falcon, and that's probably
What they were aiming for.
what they were aiming for.
All thanks to the desire to conquer Ford at Bathurst.
Bathurst.
But Holden wouldn't be able to topple Ford just yet. Ford took the victory at the first Bathurst event, and the seeds of the race's defining rivalry were planted. We've talked about Holden versus Ford before in episode 194. Check that out if you haven't.
Let's boost those numbers, baby.
Boost those numbers, that archive.
We were just babies back then.
Yeah, barely even babies.
Barely even babies.
Ford continued to claim victories for the next few years with its Cortina GT 1500 and the driving prowess of team drivers Harry Firth and Bob Jane.
Great names.
If you're not first, you're last.
Between the two drivers, Ford won every Bathurst event from 1961 to 1965, giving Bathurst its first legend status drivers. Holden was still playing catch-up, and when Ford was finally taken down in 1966, it wasn't by Holden, but a Mini.
What?
Yeah. I've seen videos of this.
Tell me about it.
Well, films.
Films.
Films converted into video. They were shot on film, but I didn't sit down with a projector and watch them. No, I saw them on the internet. I saw them on the tube.
Okay, thanks for clarifying.
I saw them on the tube.
Gotcha.
But they're from the 60s.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. The race had exploded by 1967, a grid of 60 cars with tons of international representation, including Alfa Romeo, Audi, and Datsun, had arrived to take up the challenge. By this point, the name of the race had changed several times based on sponsorship, but the location itself had become more iconic than any sponsor could hope to be. So the race had become colloquially known as the Bathurst 500.
Nice.
1967 also featured a rule change crucial to the future of the race. That year, a rule required a minimum number of pit stops to be implemented, which enabled the larger V8-powered cars, once considered too cumbersome and inefficient for the race, to seriously compete. So those things guzzle gas.
Yeah.
They have to stop for gas more.
Yeah.
So they made a rule that no matter how much gas you're guzzling, you had to stop a certain amount of time.
Makes sense.
Which allowed these V8 cars to compete with more efficient cars.
Not sure
Became a power race versus an efficiency race. Sounds like some lobbying was involved.
Yeah.
When Harry Firth and Fred Gibson's 289 cubic inch V8 powered Ford Falcon XR GT took the checkered flag, that thing's sick.
Oh, yeah. Love that paint scheme.
Oh,
Little did they know that the race had been changed forever. Ooh. Holden responded to Ford in 1968 with a V8 powered car of their own, the HK GTS 327 Monaro. And finally secured a much needed and long awaited win.
Monaro's story.
This is one of the iconic Australian racing cars right here.
This thing rules.
It's a coupe. Holy shit.
If you've played Forza Horizon 3, you probably unlocked it.
For almost the next 2 decades, Ford and Holden V8 cars would dominate the front of the pack at the Bathurst race, and this back-and-forth battle would create one of the most intense rivalries in all of motorsport.
Motorsport.
Motorsport. Yeah.
Jimmy and I had a little bit on Friday where it's an Australian guy who's obsessed with Hanna-Barbera cartoons.
Hanna-Barbera?
Hanna-Barbera. Oh, I love that. Bonnie Rubble, mate.
Oh, mate. Penelope Pitstop.
Yeah. Muttley.
Oh. Aye.
Oh, those
He's a right bogan.
A mystery machine. They're always looking for ghosts and such, isn't it?
Scooby too.
Scooby. Oh, I love that Scoob. And his little brother, Scrappy. Cousin, really? You know, sometimes you talk to people and they have an accent.
Yeah.
And you fall into it a little bit.
A little bit.
But it's very appealing, specifically with the Australian accent.
That's an empathetic response in your brain to mimic them, to make them feel more at home, but it comes off as
condescending.
Mocking. Yeah. Big thanks to BetterHelp for sponsoring this episode of Past Gas. A lot of us spend our lives wishing we had more time. The question is, time for what? If time was unlimited, how would you use it? The best way to squeeze that special thing in your schedule is to know what's important to you and to make it a priority. Therapy can help you find what matters to you so you can do more of it. I think therapy is super important for everyone. I don't think anyone has all their stuff figured out, And I think BetterHelp is the best way to get into therapy if you've never done it before. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, it's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. All you have to do is fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Learn to make time for what makes you happy with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/passgas today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/passgas. Thanks, BetterHelp.
In 1969, the Australian Touring Car Championship, or ATCC, switched to a series format rather than a single race, with the Bathurst 500 as the crowning event. But the Bathurst 500 had begun to grow into something bigger than the race itself. Ford and Holden's on-track successes were translating into increased sales and were informing the kinds of performance cars built in Australia, giving way to the phrase, win on Sunday, sell on Monday. These homologation cars were often referred to as Bathurst Specials and were the cars to own in the Australian car scene.
I think I bought some of that Bathurst Special off of a Twitch streamer last year.
Gamer Girl Bathurst
Nice.
Special.
Nice. But it wasn't just the cars that had cultural influence. No, this new V8 era also gave rise to a number of hero status drivers, such as Ford driver Alan Moffat and legendary Holden driver Peter Brock.
Peter Brock.
Who we coincidentally covered in episode 160.
160.
Did he have the box full of crystals?
Yes.
Yeah, he was the crystal guy.
Hell yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Oh my God, great episode. Go listen to that. The successes of and rivalry between these two drivers created legions of fans. It intensified the brand rivalry and made the outcome of Bathurst all the more important.
Speaking of baths, I'm drinking a hop water.
Yeah.
And I just
Tastes
burped.
like bath water.
I just burped and it smelled like a towel.
How often do you guys change your towels?
Change my towels? I'm embarrassed to say. I
think
use
I-
a new towel every day.
Every day?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Whoa.
Every
You don't-
shower.
Well, you don't want to get ringworm. I get it.
Riley wrestles.
Yeah.
Riley's an Olympic wrestler,
Yeah.
so
Fair enough. Fair enough.
I don't want to mix her
Yeah.
towel up with mine.
See, that's what you can do when you have a washing machine at your house.
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can just do that.
There's always a load of towels
Yeah.
going on
I bet.
in my.
I think I'm
so
about
envious.
4 showers
4 showers?
before I switch it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
You need to step your game up.
I don't have a washing machine.
That is next house. You got to get one.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Dude,
it's
life-changing.
It's literally number 1 on my list.
Yeah, it's life changing.
Yeah.
It's just I didn't have. I had like a combo one in my
Yeah.
last apartment,
yeah.
Those suck.
and it was useless.
Yeah.
So-
Do you want like poorly washed, poorly dried stuff?
Do you want
that
your
takes
stu-
4 hours?
Yeah, you want to take 4 hours to have wet clothes?
Yeah.
It's awful.
Sign me up.
But I did start just taking my stuff to the laundromat, which you can afford.
I do. I
and
do
it's,
occasionally.
No, but like drop it off. And
Oh,
they
the
fold
fluff
it
and
for you.
fold.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fluff and fold. It's
Yeah.
like they charge by the pound.
Yeah.
Even if you don't get it all, just get some of it.
And you've
That's
got
pretty
a
good.
bunch of those sheer Under Armour
you have
shirts
all your
that weigh
Under Armour
nothing.
shirts. Yeah, they weigh nothing.
Wardrobe idea. Okay. Write that down. Dude, that's a hack. For laundry? For like fluff and fold? Oh my.
Yeah, just
Light,
wear
just
the lightest
lightweight
clothes.
clothing.
You got a lot of
Yeah.
mesh.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, dude.
Okay.
It's $4.
It took us an hour and a half to do all this shit.
Bushel of
Fill
clothes.
it
That's
with a bunch
hilarious.
of like just stack all your clothes around a bunch of helium
Yeah.
balloons. You're like the smoky eunuch of fluff
Yeah.
and fold.
That's
I've done that at Whole
hilarious.
Foods where I made a really heavy salad and then just like kept my finger on it at the scale.
And
when
the
I was
rule
really
book's
broke.
just a suggestion.
Yeah.
All right, so there's a lot of rivalry, like fervor building around this race, but there was also some backlash. In the early 70s, a so-called media panic began over the Bathurst Specials, with interest groups lobbying to ban the 160-mile-per-hour supercars on our roads. But nothing could seemingly stop its growth in popularity. It was soon considered to be the most important event in all of Australian motorsport and was beginning to be referred to as
The Great Race.
Then, in 1973, the race adopted a format that remains largely unchanged to this day.
Whoever goes fastest wins.
The rule requiring all cars to be stock production cars had been lifted for a number of years. And in 1973, the Confederation of Australian Motorsports, or CAMS,
Keems.
CAMS
Games.
implemented Group C, quote, big banger regulations for touring cars across all of ATCC, outlawing highly modified class cars in favor of mildly modified touring cars.
Fun.
Yeah.
Big banger.
Fact. That's a big banger.
That's a big banger.
In addition, CAMS mandated 7 pit stops and the use of co-drivers for the first time, and required them to complete at least 54 laps. But the most important change that year came with increasing the race's length. Sources differ on why the increase was implemented, with reasons ranging from a demand for more racing to an impending countrywide switch to the metric system. Either way, the race was extended from 500 miles to 621 miles, or 1,000 kilometers, and has been since known as the Bathurst 1000.
That's not a crazy switch.
Nah.
That's all right. Perhaps the most well-known Bathurst 1000 from the 70s was the 1977 event. Moffitt was seeking his third ATCC title and was financing a Ford operation on his own after Ford withdrew official support from the race. Moffitt had got his Falcon out to a sizable lead before handing the reins over to his co-driver, Le Mans champion Jackie Ickx.
That guy's everywhere.
He really is. Like every other episode we mention him. During his stint, Ickx pushed the car and its brakes to the limit, and by the time Moffitt got the car back, the brakes were beginning to fail.
Have fun, mate.
I wonder if they probably had disc brakes in the front at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Moffitt held the lead.
1977?
Yeah,
Definitely.
they probably did. Yeah. Moffitt held the lead even as the brakes faded to the point of uselessness. Finally, with only 12 laps to go, the brakes were gone. Moffitt nursed the Falcon around the track using engine braking to slow down.
That's crazy.
His teammate Colin Bond, who was in second with a distant lead on third, eventually caught Moffitt. And on the last lap, the two drove side by side,
Nice.
a full lap ahead of the third place Holden A9X Torana, and crossed the finish line in tandem for a historic 1-2 finish.
Dude,
Nice.
driving Bathurst with no brakes, especially that first downhill double kink turn,
Yeah, that
would be terrifying.
That'd be scary. As past gas listeners like yourself, if you listen regularly, might remember from our Holden and Ford episode, by 1980, a new driver named Dick Johnson became Ford's latest cult hero. Ford entries were still not supported in this era, and Johnson entered the 1980 Bathurst 1000 in a self-funded effort. While leading the race, he was spun off track and ran over a large rock, forcing a retirement. He later asked for help in financing another effort on TV, and the Ford fans answered. The next year, he returned in a fan-financed Ford Falcon XD and took first place at Bathurst and won the ATCC.
It's like when Zach Braff crowdfunded a movie
Yeah.
when he had enough money to make his movie.
But the undisputed king of the mountain was and still is one Peter Brock.
Crystal Man.
Crystal Man.
Crystal Man. I love that he's so weird.
Yeah, he's a weird.
I love it.
Please.
I love that he's so weird and like good though.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you got to kind of be like, well, I mean, crystals power clocks. You know, so they got energy going on.
They
Yeah.
got something's happening. Definitely check out that episode.
Oh, your
160.
problem is you got too many ghosts in your car. It's eating up all your gasoline. What you need is a crystal in there.
In a box I made.
I wish Peter Brock was like my, I made a special box for the crystals.
From
So the ghosts can't eat it.
what are you talking about?
I wish Peter Brock was my mentor.
From 1972 to 1984, Brock won the race a staggering 8 times, including a three-peat from 82 to 84. And today, Bathurst 1000 winners are awarded the Peter Brock Trophy, which is unfortunately not a box of crystals.
No, it's not, but there's a crystal. Legend has it. There's a crystal inside of it.
That'd be really funny. In this era, a V8 powered car only lost Bathurst once.
But there's been a lot of V8 cars that lost.
Yeah, as we'll get to.
Since 1967, of this era, a V8 car won every year but once.
There you go.
Okay.
There we go. The race had become a cultural force to the tune of Australian V8s, but big changes were on the horizon that would shake the 1000 to its core.
An upside down horizon because it was in Australia.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
The sun in Australia doesn't rise and set. It sets and rises. Comes from the sky and then it goes down like this and then goes.
It goes back up again.
and then again. Because the sun lives in America.
Yes.
Lives
California.
in California.
All right.
It's got a house in Malibu.
He's got a house in Malibu.
It's got floors made out of leather,
Yeah.
just like Will Smith's house.
Will Arnett has a leather floored gym.
That, for some reason, makes sense to me.
A leather floored gym?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's sweat.
Yeah.
It's like either leather or rubber if you're a poorer. But why not kill an animal to make your floor?
I mean, if you have a personal gym, you're not poor.
Yeah. Unless you have rubber floors.
Wrestling mats everywhere. We can all get ringworm now.
Yeah, let's all get ringworm. Ringworm 24. Let's everybody.
Ringworm 24. Bring it in, guys.
Ringworm 24.
Ringworm 24. Ringworm
24.
Bringing it back, baby.
Oh, I joke, but Riley did get ringworm last year.
Oh, from bath
From the
towels?
gym.
Oh.
I got a ringworm when I was doing wrestling in
From
high school.
yoga or something. Yeah. Yeah, I made fun of her so hard.
I love you guys' relationship.
I didn't really. But it was weird.
It's a rash.
In 1985, the ATCC shifted its rules in order to align the World Touring Championship, WTCC, Group A regulations in order to bring the ATCC in line with the rest of the racing world and attract international participation.
Nice.
The 1985 Bathurst 1000 was a sign of things to come. For the first time since 1966, when the checkered flag was waved, it wasn't a Holden or Ford crossing the line first, but instead a V12 Jaguar XJS.
Oh, so
Okay, that's pretty sick.
finally that sentence from before makes sense.
Yeah. Holden struck back in 1986, but the V8's days of absolute dominance were numbered.
Wow, let's go.
In 1987, the Bathurst 1000 officially became a race on the WTCC calendar, and regulations now favored turbocharged vehicles. Many fans were skeptical of deviating so far from formula and the cars that had defined the Australian motorsport. Their reservations seemed all but fully realized when the King of the Mountain, Peter Brock, qualified a dismal P20 in his Holden Commodore.
Man.
Despite his tough start, Brock had an incredible race. The crystals were firing, and he finished third behind two Ford Sierra RS500 Cosworths.
Oh, wow.
That's
And
my
after
car.
the Fords were found to have technical irregularities,
Whoa.
they were disqualified. And Brock was handed his ninth and final
What a
Bathurst
stroke
win.
of luck that was.
Wow.
They didn't have their regulation crystals on board.
Yeah. Turbocharged Ford Sierras took the crown for the next 2 years, and despite a Holden V8 victory in 1990, many felt that the Bathurst 1000 and the ATCC had changed for the worse.
Oh, different things are winning.
Yeah, different things are. They're winning because they're faster.
Yeah.
Oh, Crimey River,
Got an
Australian
issue? Here's
rednecks.
a tissue.
Snowflakes.
They don't know what those are down there.
They don't.
No.
They don't have any snow.
They do
there.
have snow.
They do.
Yeah, I was just reading this book called Power and Geography,
Okay.
and they talk a lot about how
Snow.
the mountains on the east side of Australia have a lot of snow.
All right, well, I stand corrected. They know what
Yeah,
snowflakes
so they
are.
know what those are.
So that burn
That's
works.
what these guys are.
That's great.
Yeah.
From there. In the first few years after the implementation of the new rules, the racing was actually slower.
Oh.
So we take it all back.
Well,
You guys are right. You have a good reason to be upset. Slower racing. Immediately, we were proven to be dumb and mean.
we are mean.
We should look into stuff before we
Yeah.
pick sides. In Group A's first year, 9 of the cars that qualified in the top 10 under the old rules were faster than the fastest qualifying time under the new ones. Way faster.
Wow.
Yeah. The discontent over the direction of the ATCC and by extension the Bathurst 1000 reached a fever pitch when the R32 Nissan Skyline GT-R arrived in 1990.
Uh-oh.
The car failed to finish the 1990 1000, but as you might remember from our two-parter on the GT-R or our banter at the top, after Australian racing team Gibson Motorsport revamped the car for the 91 season, it was all but unstoppable, earning itself the nickname Godzilla.
Ba, 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 ba.
Ba, 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 ba.
Ba, 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 ba.
Ba, 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 ba.
The R32 cruised to victory at Bathurst in 1991 with a driving team of Gentleman Jim Richards.
Hey.
That could be an ironic nickname. We don't know.
Yeah.
And Mark Scaife, setting a race completion record of 6 hours, 19 minutes, and 14.8 seconds that would go unbroken until Nolan was born in 2010.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah. Follow the money. No such thing as coincidences.
Nope.
In 1992, the ATCC series governing body CAMS was well aware of the discontent felt by the fans and attempted to handicap the R32 with a ballast in the hopes Ford and Holden might be able to take down its crown, but the car had gotten even faster.
Womp, womp. Sorry.
Sorry, can't weigh down Godzilla.
Jesus Christ.
I suffer for my art.
Big thanks to Indeed for sponsoring this episode of Pass Gas. We're driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. In my opinion, one of the best things about Indeed is that everything is all in one place. They have so many different tools that work together to help you find the person you're looking for. And as someone who hires writers pretty regularly, I think this is a great platform. And guess what? Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/passgas. Just go to Indeed.com/passgas right now to support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/passgas. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
Afraid of another Bathurst victory from the Gibson team, CAMS forced the R32 to carry an even heavier ballast for Bathurst in 1992 in hopes that they could prevent it from spoiling the great race.
They should do that for Max Verstappen. Just have him carry, like
they should just make better cars.
They should
Everyone
make
else
better
just
cars.
needs to make
That's
better
true.
cars.
Yep.
It's not the rules' fault that it's boring. It's everyone else.
They should have 4 extra wheels on his car.
Yeah.
You want to give him more grip?
Yeah.
Ah, shit. I didn't think about that.
Great idea, Joe. Give him more grip.
Ah, and it's in the rules already. No.
But when the 1992 1000 began, it was clear the extra ballast was no use. Ford had qualified on pole, but by the end of lap 2, the R32 was in the lead. And by lap 18, it had an astonishing 20-second gap over the Ford Team
No
Sierra.
shit. Wow.
A short while later, it began to rain, and the R32's all-wheel drive system helped it extend its lead. The rain gradually worsened until the cars were navigating through a torrential downpour. And the R32 was the only car with windshield wipers on. One right after another, cars skidded off the track, forcing the safety car from the pits and erasing Nissan's lead. Fog started rolling in. Drivers later reported that visibility was so poor, they had to look at the lines on the side of the track to determine where they were.
Jeez.
Driver Neil Crompton reflected, straight out of Crompton, reflected, I caught the blur of an orange flash of fire out the corner of my eye. 2 cars had collided and caught fire as I slipped by. It was like one of those dream sequences in a movie where time slows down and you can see everything going on around you as you pick your way through the chaos. It was truly frightening. My reference for Australian accents is the mechanic in
Mad
Road
Max?
Warrior. Mad Max,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
The last of the big V8s.
Yeah. Witness me.
After 4 hours of racing, they were barely halfway through the race. Driver Danny Holm had a heart attack while
God.
driving down the Conrad Straight and was pushed to the hospital where he would later pass away. The weather eventually cleared for a short while and the track began to dry. A Ford Sierra driven by Dick Johnson had even managed to split the two GTRs with an impressive run into second place. But with around 20 laps to go, it started to rain again.
Oh my God.
Out of the ground. That's how it does in Australia.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. Fascinating how
It's
that
like
works.
a sprinkler.
Yeah.
And then
They save a fortune on irrigation.
Yeah. So it comes out of the ground and then goes up into the sky and forms clouds, and that's where we get our rain.
I always wondered how that works.
Just drops right on us.
Wow.
Yep.
Thanks, Australia.
Yeah, and then it just circles back into the
Into the ground.
soil.
Yeah.
And then up out of the soil in
Makes
Australia.
sense.
That's why in Australia you can just drink rain right out of the ground because it's filtered by the dirt.
You just aim
Delicious.
your mouth down.
Yeah, aim your mouth down. Yep. Johnson drove into the pits to switch to wet tires. The leading R32, driven by Gentleman Jim, was on slicks and began to slide, till finally colliding with a wall. Jim managed to get the car down the mountain and back toward the pits, but the rain was coming down so heavily that by the time he hit the Conrad straight a few minutes later, there was standing water.
Wow.
On the straight, Jim hydroplaned off the track and collided with a group of cars that had met the same fate only moments prior.
Wow.
Johnson, on wet tires, stormed down the mountain, down the straight, and past the GT-R with his fist raised out the window in victory.
Hey, now.
But the chaos was too much for race controllers. A red flag was waved, and in accordance with ATCC rules, those fun things, the race was reset to the lap before the
What?
race was over. Dude, at that point, just be like, it's over.
Yeah.
Like, you'd much... Oh, God.
Why would they do that?
They're dumb. The GT-R had won again. It's like F1.
Yeah, it's a weird rule. I'm sure there's some reasoning for it.
Yeah, because
But-
that's probably... It's technically the rules.
Yeah.
At the podium ceremony, an angry crowd descended on the Gibson team and drowned the P3 Nissan drivers with booze, throwing beer cans, big beer cans.
Big old Fosters.
They don't drink Fosters.
They
over there,
don't drink
apparently.
Fosters. They don't even really sell it there.
No, they drink
Really?
Weingumbic. Weingumbic beer.
What?
I just saw an Australian lady at the airport. Talked to her for a little bit. Talked about Cooper Petey.
Oh yeah, the Opal Capital.
Well, we talked about Opal Hunters Australia.
Yeah.
And Gold Rush Australia, all the Australian reality shows I watch.
There's a lot of like weird. What do they call them? There's like a term for the trucks that have like a million things.
Like
Land trains.
Land trains
Yeah.
that go to Cooper Petey.
Yeah.
They're always getting stuck.
Always getting stuck. Cooper Petey's so hot, you
Yeah.
live in caves underground.
And it's like
That's
a
kinda
tourist
sick.
It's
spot.
sick, yeah.
And there's like a million flies.
Uh-huh.
Ugh. Sounds
Yeah.
like
But there's a
Paradise.
lot of Opal.
yeah.
Love those.
Strike it rich.
Strike it rich in the Opal mines, mate. Throwing beer cans at them as they were called to the podium. Driver Neil Crompton responded in kind and flipped off the crowd.
Nice.
Hell yeah, Neil.
Flick them off, dude.
Dude, you, dude. I won. I won, dude.
You.
You, dude. I won. Dear
You with your booze.
your booze, dude. From behind the scenes, winning drivers Jim Richards and Mark Scaife were watching. Allegedly, Scaife began filling his suit with beer cans and told Richards, "F them, Jim. They're going to throw cans at us. I'm throwing them back."
Jim.
Jim implored Scaife to calm down, and when the two were called out to the podium, they were met with booze, beer cans, and angry fans chanting, "Bullshit!" When it came time for Richards to speak, the man, well-mannered enough to be nicknamed Gentleman, said to the crowd, "I'm just really stunned for words. I can't believe the reception. I thought Australian race fans had a lot more to go than this. I'll keep racing, but I tell you what, this is going to remain with me for a long time. You're all a pack of assholes."
Nice. Wow.
Richards and Scaife walked away from the podium to a chorus of more booze, and the Group A era of Bathurst was over.
Man,
Wow.
that's a bummer.
Yeah.
What
He
a way to
handled
go
it
out.
Well. He handled it
He
well.
did.
Yeah.
He did.
You got to flip it on them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He wasn't.
I'm sorry. I thought you were better than this.
Yeah, I thought you were better than this, but honestly, you're being an asshole.
You're being an asshole. Arsehole.
Arsehole.
Arsehole. That's hard to say.
It is.
Regulations for the ATCC were changed so that the V8 cars that made the great race a cultural phenomenon were by far and away the favored cars to take the checkered flag. This new era produced iconic races almost from the jump, including the 1995 event when Larry Perkins made an incredible last-to-first run from Perkins in 1995. That's insane. In 1997, the ATCC was rebranded to V8 Supercars, and the Bathurst 1000 adopted a 2-liter Super Touring Car Championship to rival the series. But the popularity of the V8s was unshakable. And since 2001, the Bathurst 1000 has exclusively been a V8 supercar race.
Yeah, HKS Monara, mate.
Monara, mate.
Historic moments from the modern era include Greg Murphy's Lap of the Gods in 2003 and a last-to-first win for Chaz Mostert and Paul Morris in 2014. And while the Ford vs. Holden rivalry that made up nearly the entire history of the Bathurst 1000 came to an end in 2020 with the death of the Holden brand, the rivalry carries on in spirit, with GM-owned Chevrolet taking the spot of Holden, and as a result, the GM-Ford rivalry is as intense as ever.
There's a sense of tradition and continuity with the Bathurst 1000. Drivers have waxed poetically about the 161-lap Bathurst 1000 and what it meant to Australian motorsport over the years. But 5-time winner Garth Tander perhaps said it best when he told the Australian Broadcasting Corporation that competing at Bathurst was one of the pinnacles of Australian sport. When you drive into the town itself and you see that Mount Panorama sign, it always makes the hairs on the back of your neck stand up. On New South Wales' government's website, Bathurst is referred to as the spiritual home of Australian motorsport.
I mean, I think that's pretty true.
Hell yeah. This year, the 61st race held at the Bathurst circuit will be on October 13th. Mount Panorama remains a public road, and apart from the 6 weekends a year it's closed for racing, it's open for anyone to drive on it.
Are you guys thinking what I'm thinking?
You guys thinking what I'm thinking?
Crash my car at Bathurst.
Let's
go.
Crash a rental at Bathurst. Do you have any 1967 Holden Monaros? Yeah, excuse me. I said on the website I would get a 67 Holden Monaro.
Sorry, mate. We're all out of them.
I got a Sentra.
So I'm crashed one last week.
That is very fun and cool. Yeah. Australia's wild, man. Yeah. I love it there.
I can't believe we didn't talk about Garth Tander until the last paragraph.
Really? We'll save Garth Tander to the end. Final quote. All right, we got some listener mail.
Hey, Past Gas, longtime Donut fan, Donut Underground member, and enthusiast of all things with wheels. I grew up in the Flint, Michigan area. My father retired from Buick City. Like many people of my generation, growing up surrounded by automotive history, it's always been an interest of mine. My other interest involves two-wheeled contraptions, oddly without motors. I'm not a typical cyclist, as I'm a big guy, but as I'm hammering out my miles on my bike, I worked my way through the entire podcast library of Past Gas with my headphones, and I went back for a second listen. It makes working towards a healthier life more enjoyable.
Hell yeah.
Let's go,
That's
buddy.
awesome. Thank you for the commitment to automotive history and congratulations on earning #1 automotive podcast.
Thanks.
Now
dude.
it's #2, but still thank you. For your automotive history viewing pleasure, I've attached a picture of my bike along with the Flint River, located in the former site of Chevy in the Hole, home of Plant 4, which played an important role in the 1937 sit-down strike.
Oh, nice.
We talked about that in one of the episodes. The site is now an amazing park with trails and green space. Thank you, Cody, a.k.a. the plus-size cyclist.
Nice,
Awesome.
dude.
There's two things in that I love. One, getting out there,
Yeah,
making a healthier lifestyle.
absolutely.
Everyone that is on this podcast is a big fan of that. I've been committed to a healthier life. I've been running.
Nice.
Been counting my cows.
You look great.
Thank you. If you guys want to see how great I look, check out our YouTube channel, Donut Podcast. We are filming all of these now. Check us out on TikTok, Donut Podcast, and Instagram. We'll post clips. I also love beautification, making the cities look better. Lots of
Blow-ups.
green spaces, more green spaces. So then we can have more active lifestyles.
Keep getting those miles, Cody.
Get those miles,
Yeah.
Cody. Proud of you, dog. Very well written letter as well.
Yeah.
All right, so that's all we got this week. Make sure you check out our other podcast, The Big Three, every Wednesday. It has its own feed now. Anywhere you get your podcast, share with a friend, share this cast with your friend. Word of mouth is still the best way to let people know about the guests.
The gas.
Smooth.
Yeah, go to Zoomies, get yourself some donut apparel.
Yes, sir.
All right, check these boys out on social. I love you.